How you doing?
Good. Let's tell them what just happened right before we hit go live. we have new lighting, new camera.
Yeah,
I don't know if the
lens is
viewers can
different.
tell.
We're close in.
We say we look great, and then boop, we're
boom,
live.
it comes on. Oh gosh, that's funny. How's it going?
Good. You know, coming into fall, I love the weather at this time of year. It's
absolutely.
so consistently beautiful here in California, and we like get the last hikes in, you know, the last vestiges of our outdoorsiness this time of year.
Yeah. And I always I'm looking at the app, the phone app, you know, and it says in about a week or two, it's going to be 95 degrees here again. I'm like, yes, that's why we pay the big bucks to live here.
I bet a lot of people are like, 95 again.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of stuff going on in the news this week. We should probably talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the shutdown is the latest. Well, we just had a shutdown in June, right?
I could almost roll my eyes, but it is serious.
I know. But it is where there's going to be another government shutdown potentially, right? That's looming, and it's because they don't have a budget. And it's not about they can't borrow more money. That's been approved, but this is about not having a budget, and the government can't operate without a budget. So
what's the holdup? Like, why can't they figure?
Well, you've got a democratically controlled Senate and a Republican controlled House, and there's factions in each one that are, you know, fighting and being difficult. They want their thing that they want, and so now it's kind of like they're putting in sweeteners to make more people want to be part of it. So they're now talking about border security. Yeah. So they think we can lure in some people that'll vote for this because if they get border security.
All right. So I'm, Jane investor. How concerned am I today? Do I need to be paying attention to this?
Well, if you need your money in 2 days, potentially it might be a little bit of a challenge because you might, the markets could go down if it looks like it's tomorrow afternoon. No, the shutdown might be coming. The markets could get a little rocky. And Monday again, if it is shut down, they could be rocky again. Mm-hmm. But long term, a week from now, I don't think it's a thing. I mean,
I think when people hear this, especially a retiree might be thinking, oh my gosh, my Social Security check isn't going to come next month. What's the real concern?
Yeah.
It's just a little market volatility.
Social Security is not going to be affected. They've already said they're going to pay those. So there's going to be, remember when they shut down the national parks and things a few years ago and they did this, there's going to be some inconvenience for people if it lasts for a while, but it's not going to be it's not going to change anybody's normal life.
I love it.
Yeah. Police will still get paid. The Army's still going to work, so yeah.
All as well.
Yeah.
Go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's my new favorite thing. Turn off the TV and go for a walk.
If it does go down a lot, we're going to be jumping in trying to buy more stocks, but I don't really think it's going to be that bad.
Yeah.
People kind of understand this. Another one, we kind of roll with it now, right?
You would think, but
yeah, we roll with it. Yeah.
We don't. There are people calling with questions about this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, onward to the show. We have a great show. Welcome to A Place of Possibility. We're happy to have you here. I am Richard Del Monte.
And I'm Angela Wright.
Thank you so much for being here. What are we talking about today, Angela?
We are talking about care as we age.
Identifying. Is this because of me? Yeah. My age? Are you doing this?
I might be doing research over here.
Setup.
I can't believe you said it, not me. I have not brought up your age yet.
Yes,
in this
you
episode.
have. No,
not today.
Not today. Okay, that's fair.
So identifying the best assisted living, memory care, boarding care option can be a really daunting task. And the process involves several steps, starting with care needs, psychological needs, cost, and location. And obviously, not all communities are the same.
Right.
To help us explore the world of care, we are joined today by Bryan Riddle of Care Placement Advisors. He has 9 years of experience in the senior care industry, and for over 20 years, Bryan has worked in a broad spectrum of healthcare positions, ranging from acute care in a hospital setting, pharmaceutical sales, as well as in the senior care setting. His passion is working with seniors and their loved ones to make transitioning into a community as easy as possible for all parties involved. Bryan earned a BA in Organizational Communications and Spanish from the University of Kansas. 2 years of his studies were done abroad in Guadalajara, Mexico, and San Jose, Costa Rica. Bryan is also an amazing man, and anybody would be lucky to work with him. Bryan, welcome to A Place of Possibility. We are so excited to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. It's a fun topic to talk about. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to learn. So thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah.
Great.
I know our listeners are navigating this, just looking at their Google searches, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
first of all, I didn't know folks like you existed until I met you. What is a placement specialist? Like, how do you help families?
Yeah. So in short, a placement specialist is somebody, their main job is to help you, typically the children, navigate finding the most appropriate living situation for mom or dad, right? So
Mhm.
that could be an independent living community, assisted living community, a memory care, what we call a board and care, for example. But it's kind of our job as best we can within our abilities to know the different communities and to help you make that informed decision for your loved one.
Mm. You're so nice to have somebody at that time,
I
to
know.
guide you
Gosh.
through everything.
Yeah.
It's
Can't even
really
imagine.
challenging.
So how do families typically find you? When they're in this situation like that, where they're in big need, like in our case, when it happened to us, they said, you probably should go home and get hospice or something, for your family member. We're like, wait, what? We don't know what to do. So
Mhm.
do they just Google for you, or what's the story?
That is a great, great question. The majority of the time, people find me in crisis. So that means mom or dad went to the hospital, they broke a hip. Like, what the heck are we going to do? Are we
Mhm.
going to bring them
Yeah.
home with
Right.
care? Do we need to do a transition to a community? So that's typically when individuals find out about us. There's the home care agencies that will refer to us when maybe level care has just reached too much at home, or it's too expensive to keep mom or dad at home. So we're going to do a transition to a community. The other time we get engaged quite a bit is when our hospice agencies are working with the patient, and that patient requires high level of care and they require 24/7 care. So we get engaged a lot from the different local agencies, maybe some care managers, maybe some fiduciaries kind of sprinkled into that mix. But in general, people kind of find referral agents, we're also called referral agents, online. And that can be for better or for worse when I say that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the wide world of Google, and I've certainly seen online ads for, companies. Like, there's one that pops up all the time if you Google this. Should we be using those firms? What's the difference?
I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of TV commercials out there, right? Like focusing
Mhm.
on mom and dad and finding this perfect community. And our first instinct, I'm guilty of it. I think I've diagnosed myself with 20 different diseases in the past 6 months because I'm online, I'm typing, I'm like, I've got a cold. I'm like, wait a second, like, what do we really have, right? So naturally, we're going to gravitate to going online. But there's kind of a major gotcha when you do that. Okay. So when you go online, you're Googling, you're doing these searches, you come across these sites that look legit. And I'm not saying they're not legit, but you type in your information like, here's my name, here's my email, here's my phone number. Next thing you know, your phone is blowing up, right? These
Mm.
people are calling
Mhm.
you constantly. What people don't know about these sites is that the majority of them have actually never set foot in the communities that they are recommending.
Oh,
So
lovely.
they can't tell you
Wonderful.
the level of care, for example. Are they able to do insulin? Do they do two-person assist? Are they able to manage oxygen in their community? So
Mhm.
it's kind of it's scary a little bit. You just have to be careful and be dangerous enough to know what you're doing. But typically, families don't until they meet us here locally.
Hmm.
Right, right. I mean, there's
Interesting.
got to be a lot of pitfalls with that. And I imagine, like with anything, there's so much nuance in these places. And those nuances are the things that make a big difference for you in the long run. Like, I like a good meal. If I was in a place with horrible food, I'd be miserable,
Right.
But like,
Totally.
that, and the people who work there, and like the other members of the community,
Totally.
the director and where she worked last and what she did at that company. You're so ingrained in this community.
And we do have a lot of turnover in our industry, but our seniors love food, right? So who doesn't want that sundae for dessert every meal you get, their ice cream or whatever it is. But just because you're a really, really pretty looking community, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the best food or it doesn't necessarily mean that you provide the best care because you're spending so much money. Our industry is kind of in turmoil right now, if you will. We have a huge caregiver shortage. There's a CNA shortage, a nurse shortage. So you have to know what's going on with each community as best you can. And you have to do that by not just talking to the caregivers or the former salespeople. You're talking with hospice nurses, you're talking with physical therapists going in and out of these communities, and you're kind of getting feedback from everybody involved touching those communities.
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh. So how do placement agents, how do they get paid?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a question that should always be asked. So we are a complementary service to the family. It's the communities where we end up placing the individual. They pay us a referral fee. Okay. So the referral agents, the local ones, the big ones, for example, we don't have any skin in the game. So we don't have any association, affiliation, or ownership with these communities. But we can work with any and all of the communities. They are willing to pay with us, but you have to do a good placement. It's about placing mom or dad at the community that's going to make the most sense for them.
So you're telling me that it doesn't cost any extra for the consumer to have someone like you in the mix?
It does not. It's
wow,
complimentary for them.
That's amazing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it just behooves them to use someone who's local, to make sure they're getting the best fit for mom or dad.
No kidding.
Yeah, as we're talking, I'm thinking this sounds like some Cadillac consulting service that most people can't even afford. That's amazing.
You're working with someone who's doing their job correctly. That person doesn't place at a community that they've never set foot in, right? Like, do you want mom or dad to go to a place where this person's saying, hey, go there, it looks nice, you should try it out? It doesn't work that way, right? So you want to go and work with somebody who looks at the California Department of Social Services website. Like, what type of citations, what type of violations does this community have against them, right?
Yeah.
What's their turnover? How often are caregivers coming and going? So you want to preview communities. You want to be in them all the time. I have been in communities hundreds of times, but I'm still referencing any citations and violations because things change, right?
Yeah.
Like it just happens.
Yeah.
And you want to tour with your families if you can. So how the person hopefully can do placement, and it doesn't happen this way all the time, but we want to do an assessment. We want to do a consultation, meet mom or dad in whatever setting they're in. Maybe that means that they're in a hospital, they had an event. Maybe that means that they're in a skilled nursing facility, they had an event. Or maybe that means that they're in home. But when you're doing placement, we think of it as, hey, we're looking for the care for mom or dad. Like, are they incontinent? Do they need more socialization, bathing, grooming, whatever it is? But there's more than that. So you have to look at their environment if you can. So if the children want some fancy place with fireplaces and chandeliers, maybe if dad is from Montana, he does really well and he was a rancher, maybe those communities aren't the most appropriate for that person. Right?
Got it.
That makes a lot of
There's
sense.
actually a lot more to look at than just care.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's true. So you're living your whole life there. So it is a big deal.
Big decision. Big decision.
Yeah. And so you rattled off a couple of different types of communities during this conversation. And I'm wondering if you could break down the differences for people who don't know, even for me.
Most people don't know.
What is the difference between a board-in care and, like a continuing care community? Like, oh my gosh, you have independent, assisted, memory care, board-in care, continuing care, nursing home.
Yeah, there's like a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. We don't know.
I know. I'm confused now too. You just confused me, Angela. So
I'm really good at that.
That's reassuring.
So, independent living. So that's going to be for the individual who doesn't need any help with what we call activities of daily living. So again, the bathing, the toileting, the grooming, the medication management, active communities, they go on excursions, your meals are taken care of. It's a lot of fun. They come in, they clean your apartment. Assisted living is going to be, maybe you're still pretty independent, but we need a little bit of oversight with your medications, right?
Okay.
So your meals are taken care of, transportation to and from doctor appointments. There's caregivers on site. You have a little pendant that you can hit should you need assistance.
Okay.
But the next two ones that you brought up are really good. You have the memory care, and then we have the boarding cares. Most people don't even know what boarding cares are. So our memory cares are going to be more appropriate for someone maybe, with a dementia diagnosis. It's more of a contained environment, but there's activities, there's stimulation. They're designed for the person who really needs to be engaged and involved. But there is what we call a boarding care. So boarding cares are homes in most of our neighborhoods. And I'm just talking California, so I can't speak intelligently to other states, but they're homes in our neighborhoods and they're licensed like our big assisted living communities, but there's a huge difference. So they only take 6 people in the home, 6.
Oh.
There are 2 caregivers during the day and there's 1 caregiver at nighttime. So the benefit is that there's great continuity, consistency of care. The caregivers are super skilled at their trade, right? But there is a downside. So unlike the big memory cares, there's not a lot of activity or stimulation happening in those environments. But if mom or dad are in a memory care, maybe they are nonverbal, maybe they're not participating, sometimes it behooves the family to transition them into a boarding care because you get great care. And usually the cost is less expensive.
Interesting. Yeah.
So then we
I've
have
heard this called, I think I've heard this called like a adult foster kind of home in other states. Is that similar?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think we all have different names. California, we like to be different with everything we do. Right? Let's not talk about Medicaid. It's got to be Medi-Cal. But
we're really trying to be our own country here.
Yeah, we are.
We really are. So, I mean, our weather kind of makes it worth that. So,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then the last one on the spectrum is what we call continuing care communities. Our independent living communities, our little assisted living communities, and our little memory care communities, we have like a one-time little buy-in. It could be $5,000, it could be $10,000, maybe equal to the first month's rent. But that's a one-time little fee. But when we go to these big continuing care communities, at the end of the day, they have independent living, assisted living, memory care, and then they have a skilled nursing facility typically associated with their communities. But the big gotcha is it may cost you $250,000 to move in, and it can be up to $1 million plus.
Wow.
So it just depends on the lifestyle that you're looking for. If having a skilled nursing facility is super important to you, I think that's okay. But the majority of people are only in a skilled nursing facility if they even have to go to one for approximately 14 to 21 days. So I'm not really sure that using $1 million is worth that 21 days.
That's a really good
financial planning on your part. You're right.
Sure, you guys right there all day, every day. But
wow.
Use that money, make it work for yourself, in my opinion, versus giving it to them and letting it work for them.
That's interesting. But what about nursing homes?
Yeah.
So placement specialists like myself, we actually don't work with them. And there's a reason why. I mean, we can refer to them from the skilled nursing perspective if they need physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, right? But nursing homes, when someone admits there and they end up being there long term, usually it's because they have run out of money. So that patient, that bed converts into a Medicaid, or what we would call a Medi-Cal bed, right? So that's mom or dad's last home. So totally different situation than assisted living.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's been a medical event, round the clock care. You're recovering from a surgery. That's when you're headed to a nursing home.
I mean, it's just more custodial care. It's nursing homes are a good thing. They have a purpose, but it's not going to be a private pay situation per se. It could be, but it will be very, very expensive. But when you're in a nursing home and it's custodial care, you're not receiving nursing. It's custodial care. So help with bathing, toileting, grooming. Yeah. So people kind of don't understand that necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do you know when it's time to transition your loved one to a nursing, some kind of a care facility?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's just people are racked with guilt and everything else, and they feel bad. And the ideal thing is you want to take care of your parents forever and let them live in your house and all that. It's a great thing to imagine, but it's really hard when it comes down to it.
No, for sure.
So how do you know when it's time?
So sometimes we are able to make that decision with our loved one. And then sometimes there is a crisis situation where our entire world is flipped upside down and we have to make the decision, right? So an example would be mom or dad live in Rossmore in Walnut Creek, and mom was found wandering down the street to the local Safeway, right? So probably this could be a conversation where mom needs to transition into a memory care, or they fall, they go to the hospital, they can't afford, $20,000, $30,000 a month for round the clock care. So maybe it makes more time to transition mom or dad into an assisted living community.
Yeah.
So those are our crisis situations. And then we have our other ones where mom or dad are kind of kicking tires. They're like, maybe this is something that we want to do. Maybe we're not as social as we used to be. I'm not driving anymore. I'm feeling a little bit confined in my home. These communities offer transportation to and from doctor appointments, excursions, downtown Walnut Creek. They go shopping and, casinos. Our seniors love to spend money. So our casino trips, those are pretty popular. But at the end, what I tell my families when I work with them is sometimes the children really want to push mom or dad into a community. And to Richard, to your point, like they feel guilt, they're worried, is mom okay? Is she taking her medications? And that's okay. I love how much they love mom or dad. However, if placement is to work, we want mom or dad to have buy-in. Like they have to have some say in the process. I want them to tour with us. I want the kids to take pictures of the community if mom or dad can't actually be with us. Maybe do a video of the caregivers, for example. What environment exactly are they walking into? So sometimes I have to play a little bit of interference with the family dynamics and navigate that as best I can. But it all comes down to mom and dad and really what's going to be best for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
You delved into this a little bit. I was going to ask you next about the process a family when working with you, like from the first call to mom's, safe in her new home. What does that look like?
Yeah. So the goal of placement. So when someone contacts me initially, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to ask them like a billion questions. And I just am upfront with them, like, how much time do you have? Because I'm going to be growing. Yeah. I need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes the children like to brush over the ugly. Like, she only hits my dad 20 times a day. I'm like, versus the 100 that, probably is actually helping. But so really it comes down to a detailed intake, like how much information can I get to get my little head thinking about the direction we might want to go.
Okay.
The next step is, if possible, to meet with the loved one in whatever setting they are in. A lot of times when mom or dad end up in a skilled nursing facility, the kids are kind of freaked out. And I have to ask the question, does mom or dad, do they know that you're considering making a transition to a community? And 8 times out of 10, it's no. So I go to the skilled nursing facility, and the best way to do it is to present as you're part of the care team. Because again, I need to meet mom. I need to know what she's like. What's her speech like? Can she express her needs? And then the second step of that process for me would be, hey, I'm going to go talk to physical therapy now. Like, how how well is she transferring? Is she walking by herself with a walker? What exactly is that distance? So that's really step two, like figuring out that level of care that's needed. If you can, it's best, but not always possible. I like to tour with my families. It's a super emotional journey.
Yeah,
And we kind of narrow the scope down to that we're looking for. I need to make sure that they're looking at the community or the boarding care for the right reasons. I'll give you a really specific example. It's hilarious. Not hilarious, but hilarious. I was working with an individual for a hospice placement. Mom wasn't quite transitioning, but they needed a lot of help. So I identified the communities based on the care levels, and the communities that I knew could manage those care levels. But we got to the first house, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this house is identical to the house we grew up in. My mom's gonna love this."
Huh.
And I'm like, "And I love that you love this, but mom is bedbound, and she's not necessarily alert. So I don't think mom's going to see the house necessarily."
Okay. Good
So
point.
let's go in. Let's meet the caregivers and see how wonderful and what a great place this is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about money. It's
Ooh.
always the big question,
Always
right?
the
The
money.
biggest thing people have, and it's all about money. What is the thing we just learned the other day from our lawyer?
What
Money.
do you say? I forgot already. It was
money.
two whole
Everything
days ago.
changes. Money changes
Money
everything.
changes
I think he said. Yeah.
everything.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about budgets. What are these different ways of going cost?
Yeah. So I get a lot.
Let's say.
Yeah, Bay Area. You know what? In general, it's expensive. It doesn't really matter anymore where you go necessarily. It's getting pricey. Every year the prices go up. The children call me, and there is the assumption that Medicare or Medi-Cal is going to pay for it. Like no one's really planning for this, right?
Yep.
So people are assuming that the state's going to take over, or that just insurance is going to pay for it. I get phone calls all the time. Mom has Kaiser. What will that cover? I'm like, ooh, her medical insurance. That's what it's going to cover, right?
Yeah.
So there's really only three ways that this can be paid for. It's private pay, so it is out of pocket, and it's expensive. There's what we call aid and attendance. It's a veteran's benefit that a lot of people don't know about. There's criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify for it, but it's worth calling your local VA to get more information about it.
Okay.
My mom had Parkinson's. My dad is a veteran, and I think we qualified for approximately $1,400 a month. So it's something. Yeah. And then there's long-term care insurance. But I mean, you guys know as well as I do, not a lot of people can afford it, and most people don't actually have it.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough to have it, then you're most likely in pretty good shape, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to prices in general, the prices are all over the map. And it depends on the city that you're in. It depends on the size of room. Are you in a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? There are so many things that factor in. It's hard to say like, hey, this is what you should be planning for. And I can't even tell you, but the range would be anywhere from maybe $5,000, maybe up to $12,000. So how these places operate, and let's talk more about the memory cares and the assisted living communities. They have a base rent for the apartment, right? So you have this apartment, it includes 3 meals, your house cleaning, the activities, the transportation, but that's just the rent. So then their nurse or community liaison is going to go in, meet mom or dad, and they're going to determine what care needs do they have. So medication management, toileting, grooming, whatever it may be. So they're going to add care costs on top of that base rent. So if someone enters at a super light care level, you're in good shape. But as you decline, and let's say you end up more in a hospice situation, the price can be pretty expensive. So it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah, we've seen that too, all over the map. From, I had a woman who was getting round the clock in-home care in Rossmore about 5 years ago, was paying $10,000, which I understand now is like, you can't get that anymore. That's shot way up for in-home. Somebody went into a memory care facility in Oakland and is paying $20,000 a month private pay there. So it really,
Wow.
it's all over the place.
It's
And
all
$250,000 a year, man. That's
yeah. And we know that Medicare, Medi-Cal doesn't pay for everything. And most people assume that they're just going to be covered, especially with these asset limits going away. And so how can somebody know if the facility or the kind of care they're looking at may or may not be covered by Medi-Cal?
So when you transition into these communities, they actually don't take Medi-Cal. So when you move in, let's say you have $500,000, you move into this community and you live there for 5 years and the money spends down and the money is gone, that apartment doesn't convert into a Medi-Cal bed. So yeah, so you want to get
moving. Where are you moving?
nursing home.
So you're going to get qualified to go onto Medi-Cal with the new limits, which are much better than what they used to be before. And you will go on a list to transition into more of a nursing home setting.
Oh my gosh.
And you want to get on that list as quickly as you can, because it can take 6 months, maybe up to 2 years to actually move into a nursing home setting.
And
what happens in the meantime?
Yeah, that was going to be, so in the meantime, you don't really need nursing care. You're still the same person. You're just out of money now.
You're just out of money. So the community can't kick you out. But you really do want to transition to more of a nursing home setting as soon as you can, right? So we're all paying into this system, and we want people to honor the system and do the right thing.
Yeah.
But there are some assisted livings that do qualify for Medi-Cal, right?
What's
the story with that?
Yeah, I mean, they're far and few in between. Far and few in between. So off the top of my head, I can't tell you one assisted living community that actually offers it. They used to, a few, but it's gone for the most part. And then even those small boarding cares that we were talking about, there's a handful that offer it, but it's the same drill. I mean, it can be a year up to 2 years before you actually qualify for that bed to be converted into a Medi-Cal bed.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oof.
I know.
Wow.
And the system will only get more taxed as you lovely boomers age up into the system. I mean, it's only getting worse, right?
Yeah, I guess, because
there's a lot of you. I mean, there's this wave of coming. We like to talk about blue waves and red waves. There's a red wave coming for you.
10,000%. We call it the silver tsunami.
Sorry to name, of course.
The silver tsunami. You're in a growth industry, that's for sure. Boy, that's for sure.
Well, you have to build have more beds. I mean,
yeah,
for sure.
One more question?
Yeah, we can go for it.
Yep. Go ahead. Yours.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. If somebody's not quite ready to transition a family member, are there other resources that you would help a family with?
Yeah. Sometimes I go into homes and I do an assessment and I'm like, from a financial point of view, you're doing pretty good. And I don't just look at the person requiring care, which is really important for me to point out. It's the caretaker who needs as much help as well. They're under a lot of mental, emotional, and physical stress. So maybe right now it's more important that you have a home care company come in with their caregivers and give you some respite, for example, right? Maybe that's the best first next step. Sometimes going to an adult daycare program might make more sense. So give the loved one providing the care a chance to go out and play golf, get her hair done, just have fun, disconnect. If mom or dad aren't doing too bad, maybe they have Parkinson's, but I'm noticing that when I'm assessing them, their gait is off, their speech is off. Maybe let's just call a doctor and let's see if they can have a home health company come out and do some physical therapy and speech therapy in the home. Care managers, so many people don't know what care managers are.
What's that?
So if the children are out of state, for example, who's overseeing that home care company? Who's making sure that mom's getting to and from her doctor appointments, capturing that clinical information? and disseminating it correctly to the family so that they can make informed decisions. So
Yeah.
it's all about resources, fiduciaries. We have a legal financial network out there that people are not tapping into.
Yeah.
Maybe just something as simple as decluttering, right? Like making the house a little bit more safe in the home. Are there grab bars in the showers? Is there a shower chair? So kind of just doing a little safety check in general, but it's the caretaker that we have to be just as concerned about.
Wow.
That's such a good point. And we have a lot of clients in that position, and they come in exhausted and overwhelmed and just, I imagine if I'm in that position, hearing your voice on the other end of the phone, walking me through all of these things would be such a relief. And I'm sure families are so grateful to have your knowledge, even knowing that it's like, actually what we need to do is get a home organizer in here. Like, that's all you really need right now, that you would take the time to go through all of that and then make that recommendation. Just says a lot about you and the people that you help, are really lucky to have you.
And
so many conversations.
Not everything is as dark as maybe I made it sound. Like there's so much joy and happiness that goes with this. I see people transition into communities in their 80s and 90s, and they're dating again. They're having fun. They're making new friends. So there's so many positive things that go with this industry.
Yeah.
But at some point, we may be at both ends of the spectrum, right? Like the happiness, and then maybe more towards the end of life. So it's all about making the right decision as best you can, being informed.
Yeah.
Sure.
And to have someone like you to help along the way.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being with us today. This has
Bryan.
been really educational. Even for me, it's awesome. We really appreciate it. Bryan's contact information will be here in the show notes. So if you are in this situation and you want to get some help, more information, please reach out to Bryan. He is a wonderful addition to your team. Yeah. So thanks everybody for being with us today. If you are enjoying listening, you can like and subscribe to the show so you never miss one. If you have a question or a topic idea, you could always reach out to us at info@aplaceofpossibility.com. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with us to learn more about what's going on with your financial situation and possible solutions, you can click on the link in the show notes or right on your screen to schedule an appointment with us. We are also still offering our ebook, The Investment Answer. It is a wonderful book where you can learn more about the philosophy and science behind how we invest our clients in our own assets. What I love about this book is it's such an easy read. It's very simple, and it's written for people without finance degrees.
Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, until next time, you're invested and so are we.